Probably one of the best places to put it.
All right, everyone. Welcome. Let me go ahead and turn off the music there. Glad to see everyone here. It is the No Cap Recap. It is October 1, 2022. How you doing, Rev? So Rev, I made some food, so Rev is eating.
Yes.
So I'm gonna let the Rev eat for a couple seconds and just share a few things with you. So Reverend Michael Ellington has just had his 1 year anniversary.
I told him don't say nothing, y'all. After the comments go off, I'm hitting the kneecaps.
How you doing, Jessica? So Pastor Ellington has he was installed as pastor last year. Do you remember what day that was?
25th.
The 25th of September. So he is experiencing 1 year as pastor of New Horizon Ministries. So congratulations. We talked a little bit during the service. Well, we didn't really talk. I just talked to him in the congregation. He's a very, Jessica says, congratulations. Rob says, looking and sounding good.
Thank you, Rob.
But I'm very appreciative of my relationship with Pastor Ellington and being so open, right? I think there are some churches that can feel threatened by having conversations where they don't have control of the conversation, or if you're in a space where you don't know where the conversation is going to lead, right? And so I appreciate you for that, because it is a learning opportunity. Rob says congratulations.
Thank you, Rob.
So yeah, 1 year. We are here at 4040 Wheaton Way, Suite 203 here in Bremerton, right across the street from the Kitsap Transit Center.
You're welcome to come down for the show.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So one of the things that Pastor Ellington did as the new pastor here at the church is he changed service from Sunday to Saturday. And I would say it was to be more equitable to the community. The Rev has other reasons on why he did that, but there's no bus service on Sundays. So if you don't have transportation, it can be very difficult for you to, attend a worship service and fellowship. So it's on Saturday. And what's really nice about that too is it doesn't have to compete against the NFL and the Seahawks and whatnot. And you can say there's no perfect time in that, there's a lot of activities that go on Saturdays and folks are running errands and this and that. But part of the Rev's sermon today was talking about time.
Yeah.
And what we make time for. And it was a really helpful perspective on what we're willing to give time to. And so I'll often catch myself saying, well, I don't have time for this, or I don't have time for that. And really what I should be saying is I'm not prioritizing time for this. I'm not prioritizing time for that, because I prioritized something else as being more important or more desirable.
Sprite, beverage from the Coca-Cola family.
Wow.
We were joking about that earlier, you guys. Sprite is not paying us a penny.
No.
Okay.
And don't drink soda. It's bad for you. No. We have kids at Public Health watching. You can't be advocating for all this sugar.
That ain't got caffeine in it, so a little bit better, than a Coca-Cola.
Well, you're definitely a glass half full today type person. Don't drink soda, people. It's bad for you.
As he takes a sip of his soda.
Dude. Jessica says moderation.
Yes. All in my. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you. He beating up on me. I'm gonna call Jessica on you.
So how we always do is I read the verses that we're going to go over today, and then the Rev recaps a summary of his sermon, and then we have a conversation about it, right? And the Rev comes from the Christian religious side, and I come from the secular side. Although I am a Christian myself. And my belief is, as I say every week, that this can be very helpful. Oh no, it can be very helpful for people to be able to use the Bible as a resource. And if they end up getting touched and strengthen or establish a relationship to God, then that's a bonus from my side. But the thing is what is out here that can help people, especially during these really trying times that we find ourselves in. So all of that said, today we'll be looking at Jeremiah 17, verses 5 through 8. Pastor Ellington is using the New Living Translation this week. There are lots of different interpretations of the Bible. No? How should I be saying that? There's a lot of different translations to the Bible. So some are a little bit more plainly spoken and taking out the thous and thus, which can be easier. Do you find that sometimes in the translations that it could change the meaning?
No, so translations, various translations. That's a very deep conversation. I actually been studying a little bit more on it. You have what you have is the receptus textus. It's Latin for the received text, which would kind of be like your King James version and those older versions like that. Then you have the
Brett, why don't you a little bit louder so
sorry. You have the Textus, not Texas, Textus, Textus, receptus, Latin for the received text, and then you have a more modern version that came along, which is like the critical text or the Texum criticism versions, which are just more updated versions of the Greek. And so the receptus Texas, the received text, fella, I think his name was Warren, back in the 1800s, he was kind of rushing to get his Bible out before the Spaniards got theirs out. And, he just kind of rushed and, got it out, and that became kind of the standard. And then, over the years, he, made a couple of re-released, some other editions or whatever. And that's kind of where you get the lineage of the King James. Whereas like the New American Standard, the NLT, stuff like that, they come from the critical text. I have these notes in my office, but it's a lot to it. So it's not just like, what happens is, as time goes on, our knowledge kind of increases, and same thing with the Greek. Our understanding and translation of the old Greek got better and better and better. And so it's considered just to be a more accurate, translation of the Greek. Now, there is some subtleties in that, in which, how they apply the various scrolls that, they've come across over the years. And so you have the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church, which was like more Western or whatever. And the Eastern, they've always adhered to the Greek, and they have some older. It's a lot to it. That's a whole show.
So let me ask you this: what makes you vacillate between the New Living Translation or the other translations of the Bible?
Just what will better push the message across for people's understanding. Yeah.
Okay.
Just what people I feel like people will better comprehend. As far as yeah.
All right, that's fair. One day we should open up a few different versions, translations, and put them side by side and just see how they differ.
That's a whole can of worms you don't want to get into. Like
well, I mean, that's fascinating.
Like the NIV, NLT, like that's all kind of that new age stuff, right? You won't find I think it's John 5:4 in there, right? You know, but in the King James you will, you know, that older text or whatever. You know, so
well, why would they admit a verse? That is a whole nother one. Let's get out of this rabbit hole because
that's what I said. Because, like it's and it's not what you think, you know what I'm saying? But it's complex. You know, the transcribing of language is complex. It's not just, you know, like, you know, taking a letter from, you know, your ex-girlfriend from 10 years ago and rewriting it. Like, you know, it's you know, complexities there that every culture has. And, you know, so it's you know, translation is a very delicate thing. And, you know, like as far as like picking versions of the Bible that I'll read or utilize or whatever, like I do my research on, you know, like how that version came about and the process and stuff. And it's a lot to it. It's not, like I said, just this week I was, you know, getting, you know, like there's always stuff to learn in that. And so, yeah, it's not a very simple thing. And to the layman, you know, this is where we kind of get the problem where people like, oh, well, you know, the Bible, you know, where they kind of, you know, take aim at the Bible translations, like, oh, why is there so many different translations? Well, if you actually study, you know, what the process is and all this and that, you'll kind of get why there are so many translations. And it's not that anybody's trying to pull the wool over or, you know, change anything or whatever. That's not what's happening. You know, it's just like, for instance,
Rev, you keep going down more. I know. Go deeper and deeper.
I'm gonna let go. So it's just imagine it in this sense, right? The supercomputers and the technology it took to get to the moon in the 60s, you know what I'm saying, versus today. You know, like knowledge increases. Okay, I'll let it go.
Like we just going deeper.
There's a lot to it. You all, look, you started it. Like, I was so happy not to go there.
I couldn't tell. You seem more than happy to go there. All right, so today we're the verses we're looking at Jeremiah 17, 5 through 8, using the New Living Translation. Verse 5 says, "This is what the Lord says. Cursed are those who put their trust in mere humans, who rely on human strength and turn their hearts away from the Lord." Verse 6, "They are like stunted shrubs in the desert with no hope for the future. They will live in the barren wilderness in an uninhabited, salty land." Verse 7, "But blessed are those who trust in the Lord and have made the Lord their." And verse 8, the last one, "They are like trees planted along a riverbank with roots that reach deep into the water. Such trees are not bothered by the heat or worried by long months of drought. Their leaves stay green and they will never stop producing fruit." And so that was the reading. And, you know, if you would, Pastor Ellington, would you recap your sermon briefly? Yeah. And it was centered around trust.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of skip to the main gist of it. My premise was, you know, there are three main areas of our lives that we need to learn to place our trust in God for, right? And so those three main areas is our relations, which would be our family, our children, our marriage, our work, and our friends. The second main area is our resources, which would be our time, our talent, and our tithe. And we kind of broke down tithe. And then ourselves, as far as our healing, our protection, our provision, and our salvation.
So trust, resources, and the third one?
It wasn't trust. It's our relations,
Our relations,
our resources,
resources,
and ourselves.
and ourselves.
You can
Thank you.
kind of cheat from there.
All right. So dig into that a little bit.
So, all right. So our relations, right? That was the first one. Um, I kind of talked with the congregation about you know issues that we have with each one of these areas of our relations, as far as our family, our children, our marriage, our work, and our friends. And we have to learn to trust God with our family, with those conflicts that arise within the family unit. Um, we have to go to God first with those things, and even I dare say I bring our family members along with us as we go to God. Say, hey, let's stop for a moment. This is getting too heated. Let's pray together. And see if we can maybe revisit this in a more calmer manner. And maybe some older things that have passed by, like, yeah, God help me, what I'm saying, heal in me in this relationship, humble me so, I can, have the courage to go and, apologize and or accept forgiveness or whatever the case may be, right? But, in each one of these things, we have to learn to trust God in these things, because within his word he deals with all of these things, and he cares about us in all of these different areas. So there's things in here uh, about our children, our marriage, like I said, our work, um, and so like Paul, he gives examples of, masters and slaves, in that community, day and age. That was what was happening, but it's that same premise is applicable to a worker and their boss, their supervisor, your coworkers, your friendships. The Bible addresses all of these different areas, and we have to learn to trust in God in these areas of our lives, for our resources, our time. A lot of us, don't properly manage our time, and then we, run around saying, oh, I don't have time for stuff, and I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. Well, you don't properly manage your time,
Don't judge me, Rev.
and then you hoard the free time that you do have, you're hoarding it to yourself, like, oh, well, I worked today, so I just want to relax now, and this and that. And it's like, okay, you can't give 20 minutes, an hour more, you ain't got another hour in you for God. I don't have no time for God now, because I worked 8 hours. It's 24 hours in a day. You use one third of that day, and you saying now you ain't got no more time for nothing else. It don't equal up, right? So we're not properly managing our time, our talent. God pours into all of us certain gifts. And the Bible talks about those who know how to lead.
Well, let's
The,
stay on relationships first. Relations. So let me
oh,
let me
okay,
give you some
okay, yeah, yeah.
feedback on that. So I really this was a they're all really great sermons. I enjoy listening to the word and then applying it to my life. Right, and I was saying it jokingly, but it is right. My time management isn't great. I put a lot on my plate.
That's resources. You skipping. You said you
Oh
stay
yeah,
on your,
well
your
you started talking about
resources.
time. But that it goes in that where sometimes I'm not giving enough time to my relationships, right?
Mhm.
And that piece is important. What I wanted to do before I kind of build on this here, so trust. I wanted to give you the definition, right? And
Mm.
so where the Rev from the biblical standpoint is saying trust the three areas. Area one being family, work, friends, marriage, and children. The definition that I pulled up here: trust, firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. relations have to be built on trust.
So can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
So, as far as trust goes, right?
Mhm.
Uh, of course, there's a secular definition of trust, but there's also a biblical definition of trust.
Give me your
as well.
biblical definition of trust.
So, for the text that we use today in the Hebrew tongue, batak is a verb meaning to trust, and I might have butchered that word. I don't really do Hebrew very well, you guys. I don't do much languages other than English very well, and sometimes I struggle with that one. Anyway, it's a verb meaning to trust, be confident or sure, be bold, and confidence, security, sureness. Put confidence, make to hope.
So be confident, be bold.
No. It's a verb meaning to trust, be confident, or sure.
But what does trust mean biblically?
Okay, so as it was used in the text today, right? In the Jeremiah 17:5-8, it was being used as a verb meaning to trust, be confident, or sure, right? And of course, that trust was being the action in that trust was towards God, right? So we could say it was meaning to trust, be confident or sure of God. Some more research I did on trust, and this is more kind of New Testament stuff. We'll come across trust a lot more in some of those newer translations we were talking about. But anyway, in modern use, there's a difference between faith and trust. Faith is usually looked upon as a spiritual concept. It is considered as an allegiance or belief in a being. Trust would actually mean that a person places complete confidence and reliance in another person. The original language and meaning, to understand what faith and trust mean in the Bible, we need to go back to the original language of the New Testament Greek. There are three primary translations for the word faith in Greek. There's the noun pistis, the adjective pistos, and the verb pistou. Each form meaning a variation of the word trust. Hence, pistis is a trust in someone, something. Pistis as an adjective is trusting, as in a trusting person. And
all right, I'm sitting here listening to you, and you're losing me. So
okay. But anyway,
we need to pull it back.
Let's
make it simpler.
Yeah, let's stick with the Hebrew
biblical definition,
meaning to be confident, assuring.
As a verb meaning to trust, be confident or sure, right? Yeah. Bold and confident, security, assuredness.
I'm a deep studier, y'all. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it won't be helpful, right? Like I'm listening and I'm like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about anymore. What's happening? All
right, go ahead.
Sometimes he want to show out. It's all good. So in that, my thought on it is, how do you build trust? You spoke about trust with a coworker or a boss, right? You talked about trust with a significant other, your loved one, or with a friend. And so, how do you build trust? When should you be trusting? Do you trust too much? You spoke about folks betraying a confidence, right? Which is really important. And as we are trying to extend ourselves and navigate this world, that can be very unsettling, right? You want to be trustful, but you've been hurt in the past. And so as you go out and you try to cultivate a new relationship, whether it's a friendship or a romantic situation, right? You're going to be more guarded because you were hurt in the past. So when do you extend that bubble of trust and trust that person with more? I think about setting up healthy boundaries, in relationship. Communication is very important for trust. A lot of times, I think where relationships break down is thinking that the other person should know how you want to be treated or how you feel. And I think a lot of issues come from that, a lot, where it's like, well, if you loved me, you should have known that that was going to make me feel some kind of way. And it's like, well, maybe that could be true, but I'm not a mind reader. You hear that all the time, right?
If you love me, you'd be a mind reader.
Right. If you love me, you'd be a mind reader. But you also said, that when folks were returning back to God, that He will meet you halfway. So as you come back to God, God will come back to you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great analogy to navigate actual friendships and relationships in the world, right? So there has to be work on both sides. So it can't just be you extending your trust one way, right? That other person that you're engaging with also has to be doing the work also, right? Yeah. And so you need to be very cognizant of that. So while, yes, if I'm your friend and I care about you, I'm going to be considerate of your feelings, but I can't know everything, right? I can't know exactly how you're going to take a thing. And sometimes that may be my truth, and it is what it is. And so that other person also has to extend some of that trust and faith and grace and do some of that work, right? Yeah. So that the relationship can grow and get stronger. Yeah. And you see a lot of relationships break down as soon as there's stormy waters, right? Fair weather friends. Yeah. Everything's all good while it's all good. But as soon as there's any kind of conflict, then that friendship is gone. That relationship is now destroyed because there truly wasn't any trust there. It was just good times, so it's all good. Thoughts?
Yeah. So big thing you said there was grace. Extending that. And then a lot of times, what we, because of the lack of communication, you have people that will, what I'm saying, just jump head in, and don't know what they're jumping into, or who they're jumping in with, or whatever the case may be. And sometimes, like, well, I ain't gonna say something, it's okay to move slow. You don't have to rush everything. Like, take your time, because one, you get to understand that person better. That person gets to understand you better. And, you get to build, what I'm saying, common trust, what I'm saying, and the relation, and you get to build a sturdy foundation for the relationship, where it's not like, oh, it's a fair weather thing. Because and I hate to kind of jump the gun here, but one of the things I was talking about was with, friends that, just simply there to, siphon off your resources. Mm-hmm. And it's like, listen, well, if you just slow down a little bit instead of, just heading in. I tell my kids all the time, look, you don't really, like, that person. That's not your friend. Mm-hmm. You can't just like, oh, this is my friend. Like, no, that person.
An acquaintance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, be intentional, in your relationships. And that's what I was saying. Like, we got to trust in God and go to God with it and say, hey, God, lead and guide me, what I'm saying, in this process of, building a relationship, and not even just with friends, but sometimes we got to rebuild relationship with family members. Because like I said, you got damaged, relations with, with various family members. And it's like, hey, God, lead me through this where, what I'm saying, I can trust and be vulnerable again or whatever. And it's a process, and it's not something that has to be rushed, as long as you're, moving forward.
Right. So what is that? Because we in general, folks talk like that all the time. Oh, take your time, and it's a process. Mm-hmm. Well, what exactly is that process? What is step 1, step 2, step 3? So I could take it to God, right? But as always, my favorite thing is, faith without work is dead. So what is the actual work that I need to do to either build a new relationship or to repair a relationship that has been harmed?
So
what are the steps?
So one, I think the very first and most critical thing is conversation, what did you call it? Uh, it just, conversing with one another and having, what I'm saying, open dialogue, so two things. One, if it's a rebuilding process, like, hey, we need to address the breakdown. You know what I'm saying? We need to address, moving forward. I tell people all the time about, like having adult conversations, you know what I'm saying? Because, you're a big boy now, like, or you're a big girl now. You got to have adult conversations. You can't just sit here and, oh, this is my man, my woman, or whatever. Like, you got to discuss, like, hey, these are my values, these are my morals, this is what my integrity looks like, and what I expect in return, and these are my absolutes, and I'm saying, where I draw the line at,
So
having that
model
sort.
that for me. You know, so let me set it up for you. We have a conflict. How do you approach me to have that conversation? Because often the way that it goes is, hey, I don't play that. That's not how it's gonna go here. So, let me let you know that, we're not doing this. We're not doing that, boo-boo. Okay? Okay? This ain't going down like that. That's usually how it goes because there's emotion in there, right? Yeah. There's anger. So what does that look like if you're coming to me and you have felt that I have harmed you in some kind of way and you're trying to repair it? And then we'll flip it, and maybe you're coming to me to repair. Yeah. Even though it was me who harmed you, but you want to repair the relationship. Yeah. So, actually, in either way, I'm going to be like, hey, bro, let's talk. I feel like it was a breakdown somewhere, whatever the situation was, like, this is how I look at it. This is where I come from it. This is my view, my perception of the event, right? Because your perception, your view may differ, right? And I'm willing to accept that. Well, like, it does. I'm pissed at you. Yeah. So right. You want to come to me and tell me how you see it? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you tripping? No. You need to see it my way. I'm mad at you. I understand that, but listen, right? Because we grown folk. So I'm willing to accept your view of it, right? And my view may simply be that I don't understand your view. So until we start to discuss, like, hey, this is, kind of where I'm coming from, and where are you coming from? Where are you intersecting with this at? And where are we missing one another? Like, let's be, grown folks and, like, just have a conversation about it. I don't have to be upset and, or like, what is it? I don't have to be upset or defensive or aggressive or anything else because I differ from what you differ from, right? Well, you may not, but I am. Yeah, well then, you know what? Don't be petty, bro. Let's talk about this. Well, I feel some kind of way. I feel like you harmed me, so I'm pissed. Well, then, if you feel like I harmed you, then I'm gonna simply say, okay, well, explain to me where you feel like I harmed you at. You know what I'm saying? I want to know that because, again, I'm willing to listen to your perspective and your side of it. And, again, maybe my perspective got me, what I'm saying, on the outskirts, and, like, maybe I did do something to harm you. So tell me, what I'm saying, why it is you feel like I harmed you. And, let's get to a better understanding. So stop there. Yeah. I like what you're doing. I think that's really powerful, right? Is, again, we tell folks, pull your big boy pants on, and let's have a adult conversation. But what does that conversation look like? And I think what you're modeling there is you value the friendship, you value the relationship. And so whether you're the one that felt like you were wronged, or that person is mad at you, you're willing to go to that person and say, hey, clearly there's an issue. Let's talk about it. Yeah, you got Let's have a conversation. You got to. Now, I might submit that I wouldn't, put in backhanded compliments like, we adults here, so let's have adult conversation, because that kind of, is just turning the knife in there. That was not a backhanded conversation. I'm just saying that's how people take things like that. It's like, if you're telling me we need to have an adult conversation, then what you're saying is the conversations we've had in the past have been childish. So you're calling me a child, right? So
see, I can see your perspective in that. I didn't look at it that way.
That's why we're having the conversation, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
I'm just like, my in me saying that is saying that, historically, people skip over the big important conversations that need to be had, the adult conversations. Like those often get skipped over in lieu of, what, it wasn't that big that time. I'm just gonna let it go and let the friendship, move on.
Oh, I agree with you.
It builds up and then it becomes a boiling tipping point.
I'm just saying that phrase isn't helpful when you're trying to establish the conversation, right? Well, because you're saying I'm already in my emotion. So you already know it's going to be difficult to get me to listen and not just to hear so I can respond, right? Because there's different ways that we hear things. Sometimes we hear because we're automatically defensive. You ever spoke with someone and immediately as soon as you start talking, they're just, well, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. Well, my fault. Or what you saying? I didn't do that. And it's like, wait, hold on. Let's we're just having a conversation here. I'm not saying that you did anything. I'm just stating words at this point. There's no accusation.
And that's why I like having these conversations, because you always push me to like look outside of like my brain, because I feel like the girlfriend, if you knew me, you'd be a mind reader. It's like, I ain't mean nothing bad. Yeah. Right. But yeah, I get you. I follow you.
And our logic, our emotional intelligence is low because we're in a heightened state of emotion, right? And if we feel like we've been slighted, it becomes increasingly difficult to have conversation and communication. When we think about, our domestication, how we were raised, did we have good communication with our parents, with our siblings, in past relationships we've had? So we take all those past experiences and that builds on who we are today and how we navigate the world and engage with each other. For some folks, it's very taboo to have conversations at all. Like, we don't talk about money. We don't talk about sex. We don't talk about... but we need to talk about these things that are really important. Yeah. And so how do you do that? So I always want to try to model what that could look like, if you're the one that's trying to approach. And one of the things that, I feel is really important, I share with a lot of folks, life is hard, right? Life is so hard. And we carry all these burdens. And it's like, unburden yourself. You know that you care about this person. You love this person.
I would say life is hard, but sometimes we increase the difficulty level, on our own.
Oh, facts. Folks love playing life on God mode.
You know what? Oh my goodness! I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you this after the show. But this is what I gotta say. Don't play Simon Says with Simon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and don't play life with God. You're like, Simon, that's his game, and life, that's God's game. So don't do that.
Yeah. So that's a good thing. So just to recap really quick, when you go to someone, have the conversation, right? You have this relationship, and we're really speaking here on trying to repair a relationship. Something's happened, but you do care about this person. You don't want to be in a space where, you know what, I've got this thing happened with this person, and I'm going to see them from time to time. And every time I see them, I just feel some kind of way because it never got resolved. Yeah. Right. And so you don't have to hold on to that. You can navigate and walk through that. And at the end of it, maybe the relationship isn't ever going to be the same depending on what took place. But it doesn't have to be what it is and how you feel. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, I would say forgiveness is very big. It's very powerful. Even no matter which way it goes, right? Whether you're forgiving someone or you're forgiving yourself, it's very powerful, forgiveness, because there's a release there. When you forgive, there's a release there. And it facilitates the ability, to progress, beyond current situations.
So let me ask a question. Do you believe then for, forgiveness to take place, that you need to work through it. Oh, let me read Jessica's comment here. Jessica says researcher Bryn Brown in her book says that being clear is being kind. I agree with that. Sometimes when I'm trying to be kind, I am too indirect. We need to be clear, honest, and compassionate. That can be hard when people are scared of conflict. Yeah, facts.
Yeah,
Facts.
yeah.
A lot of people are want to avoid conflict, right? It can be difficult, but those things start to stack up, right? I've got this issue with this person over here. I got this issue with my mom. I got this one over here with my daughter. I got this one over, and you're just,
and that's what I say. It reaches that boiling over point where it's just like, it's like, it took me a long time to, learn a very simple, no, to be able to say like, no, like that's not for me, that's, like I tell you, like I'm not gonna cook.
You tell me no.
I ain't getting in the kitchen.
We're going to work on that, Rev.
I'm not getting in the kitchen. I ain't cooking. I ain't doing that. That's not what I'm willing to help out, but I'm not cooking. You know what I'm saying? Like, but under, for that, for people to be direct, be clear, they got to spend some time with self too and get to know self, because some people get in that, oh, I'm, just yes, 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 and just trying to help everybody and be so kind to everybody and whatever, that they don't even really know themselves to know, where they can be helpful at, and and where they, and just to be able to be clear about who they are, to say like, be able to say like, yeah, no, I can't do that one, but you know what I'm saying, because no isn't always a bad
so thing. Yeah, what I love about that is you're not saying no for the sake of no. Yeah. Right. So I feel some kind of way like, hey, we're friends, we're this and that, I need help in this, and you're telling me no. Explaining why it's a no can be very powerful and helpful, right? Yeah. And then secondarily, you were suggesting I can't do this, but I could do this. Yeah. And as the relationship builds, I know, well, Rev probably ain't going to get behind the vehicle and pick someone up at KMH for me, right? But the Rev will allow me to use the church to further the mission and do a lot of other things. And so
I'm gonna try and help you find drivers, somebody that will drive.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Cause but let's not get distracted on drivers. Rev,
how about you don't get distracted?
We're gonna put our business out in the street, bro.
So let's move on to number 2. So the first one was relationship. What was number 2?
Relations. The second one was resources.
Resources. All right.
Resources. That's a sore spot. Folk don't want to. Like, what I'm saying. Research. Like, what? You want what?
Oh, I'm smiling today because folks are probably feeling pretty called out in the sermon after this one.
Hey, you know what? I meant to put out a PSA warning that this was a toe stomper. Paz was coming to stomp on toes today. But so resources, there's 3 main areas of our resources that I feel like, we need to trust God in, and the thing with resources, I put in parentheses that, our resources should be dedicated towards God. That's my belief as a, man of the cloth. Right. So, and when I say they should be dedicated towards God, I'm not saying that like every single thing you got needs to go to God. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying like every single moment you got needs to go to God, right? So the first thing of our resources is our time. I'm not saying that, after you get off of work, what I'm saying, the next 16 hours need to be dedicated to God. That's not what I'm saying, right? But what I'm saying is we need to dedicate some time to God. We put time aside for other things. We should be able to put things, we should be able to put time aside for God, right? So it's like, okay, football game comes on at this time. I know this is like 5 to 7:30, is the football game, right? I'm gonna watch the game. Look. I know they playing. I'm watching, right?
Mhm.
But we can't sit there and say, oh well, I know service is going on for an hour and a half. 11, 12:30. I'm gonna put time aside for service. Like, why not? Or we know all we do is go to church on Sunday, and then Monday through Sunday through Friday, we sitting on our hands, and ain't reading no scriptures. Why can't you put 10 minutes a day aside to read your Bible?
So I loved your analogy, or not your analogy, but how you got, in touch with the word. Would you share that?
And
I thought that was great.
That is a legit story. So how I learned to start reading my Bible was during commercial breaks. I made up my mind that like I really need to, start reading my Bible, but I had a difficult time doing it. So I just brought my Bible with me and sat it next to me on the couch as I watched TV. And if I'm watching like a cable show, like because I was, still had cable back then, HBO show go off, and you're waiting for the next show to come on. Okay, I'll start reading. Or if I'm watching a network channel, the commercial come on, I'll read a little bit. And soon as that commercial went off, I was right back into my show. Like, and ain't that but the more and more those commercials came on, and the more and more I started reading, like it started piquing my interest. It's like I was ignoring the show more and reading my Bible more, and it was a process where, TV was up here, Bible was down here, and it slowly, went the other way, and so you can do things like that where it's like, oh, I ain't got time. It ain't got to be a straight 10 minutes. You know what I'm saying? It can be like, okay, 30 seconds, but throughout the day, I'm going to equal up 10 minutes in reading my Bible.
That really resonated with me, today. But, it was yesterday, you and I were having a conversation, and I was sharing with you on why I haven't made full commitments to God in certain ways, right? And I have this all or nothing type attitude toward it, right? So it's like, well, if I can't do it in the way that I believe it needs to be done, where it's just 100%, then I'm not going to do it, right? And what I'm really doing is giving myself an excuse to not do it, because I'm never ever going to just say, you know what, today it's 100%. G2, Layla, it doesn't matter what's going on. It's 100%. That's what I'm doing. That's not realistic. So as long as I'm doing that, I stop the cap. I need to stop the cap and say, hey, that's not what's required, right? And that's not how you've done a lot of things or made a lot of changes in your life, right? You started taking one class, then you started taking more classes. And as that started building up, you started doing more, right? Starting the podcast, you first started watching YouTube channels on, well, how do you do this? What kind of cameras do you need? What kind of equipment? What's the platform, right? You didn't just all of a sudden just have it all said and done. And it's still not like that. It's still a work in progress. And so it's like, well, how can I do all these other things? But then when it comes to God, all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I can't, it got to be perfect. So it's like, all right, you really need to step outside of yourself and look at where your deficit is and say, am I being honest here, or am I, not being honest with myself? And you talked about that a little bit earlier about knowing yourself, right? And so having those conversations with other folks is important, because if you're listening, you might actually learn something about yourself. So, yeah, go ahead.
So I did that without beating him over here with the Bible. Y'all see that? Didn't take the Bible. All right.
Yeah, there was no verse in there. There was no Bible verse in there. It was just a conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
But seriously though, the thing is, a lot of people get intimidated because they look at, what I'm saying? And this is one of the reasons why I normally don't dress the way that I dress. I don't normally put on the collar or the tie or whatever else, right? Because a lot of people look at Christians and they be like, "Oh, I'm not, I'm not there." You know what I'm saying? I'm not, and I can't get there. You know what I'm saying? They feel like that's so far away and that's so unattainable or whatever, but they don't realize that like I'm still in the middle of the process. I'm still, building up on stuff, right? Like I got some stuff accomplished, but I'm not there. I don't care if what title I have. I'm not there. I'm not Jesus. Jesus was the only perfect one. I'm not him. So like I'm always building. So I want to present myself in the same way that you may see yourself, that like, yeah, we're getting there together, because like I'm not him. We're not him. And until people make the church, and make this space more accessible, and like, hey, you don't have to be at any particular level or point or understanding or whatever, you know like God's he's like, yeah, come on.
Yeah, what I would add to that is, before my dad passed, I was, as an adult, very disenfranchised with the church, right? Well, we've talked about it, pulpit pimps and prosperity preaching and all the things. And there's a lot of black men that feel that way today. And that has kept me away from the church, right? It's like, typically what you see is the pastor does well and the rest of the flock ain't doing so hot. But, just keep on keeping on, and one day, it's going to happen for you.
I ain't doing well, y'all.
And so, what my dad said was, you have to understand what you were saying, right? Jesus is the only perfect vessel. And in that, he said, look, church is a hospital for sinners. I was like, I never thought about it like that, right? You go to church because you're not perfect. You do need help, right? Yeah. And so stop coming or thinking that you need to be in a space perfected in order to be in the space. Come as you are, right? Because that is where you're gonna have your growth.
And here's a freebie, y'all. This is an extra one, right? A lot of people, a lot of the congregation, they sit in the audience and they're like, oh, they're listening to the sermon, and they're like, oh man, I got to get better. The pastor, he's here and I'm there. Guess what? God preached the sermon to me first. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm preaching to myself too up here. Like, I don't have it all together. There's stuff I need to fix, even in trusting in God. And like, I got a lot of faith in God. I trust in him a lot, but I'm not perfect in that, and God knows that, So the sermons that the pastors be preaching, God preached it to them first. It spoke to their heart first in order to get it to speak to you. So like, and don't look at your pastor as like, that's the man, like, no, that's just the job God gave him. It don't make it no important than the job God got for you.
And that's so interesting, because you usually see, two extremes, right? Either it's like, that's my pastor.
Oh my God.
That's the pastor's seat. Yeah. Oh no, the pastor got to eat first. Yeah. Before the kids, the pastor got to eat. Watch out. Oh, that's the first lady. Right.
Yeah,
and there's
this. Don't do that with me. Please
there's
don't.
this, it's like, what's going on? It's like so strange when you see churches like that. But then there's the opposite, right? Where it's like, oh man, the church ain't S, and they done did this and they done did that, and I ain't got no time for the church. And I feel that way, right? I identify with that in a lot of ways.
I'm sorry. I think this is important.
Yeah, go ahead. I feel like that in many ways. And you've heard me talk about the church and the fact that nationally, enrollment, membership in churches have been declining, especially with men. And so I believe that the Black church is the cornerstone of the Black community, and it has lost a lot of its luster and the things that it can do. And I could sit and complain, which is what I've done for decades, or I can say, you know what? If I believe that the church was the cornerstone and it's such a powerful resource in a place for people, whatever their situation is, then what can I do to help restore it back to what I would believe would be something that I can have faith in again, right? So I could tear it down. I could say this ain't, it's horrible and it's bad, or I can try to rebuild it. And so looking at that, that is exactly the mindset that I have now, right? Is what can I do? Can I partner with different churches? And can we work and feed the homeless or provide clothing? Can we provide uh, counseling or ministry or advice? Whatever those resources are, that's what the no cap recap is, right? Is having a conversation and finding ways to have the church extend itself out, when I felt like the church hasn't really done that, right? In many ways the church has exist, it's like, hey, come on in, right? But the church isn't going out and saying, hey, we want you, come on over here.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. I was just saying, that my attitude. Oh, you heard that? Okay. And so it's different now, right? So it's like, how can I work with different churches to help build it back to what I think is the cornerstone of the Black community. So like right now, in that, I'm on a mission to meet with all the pastors of the Black congregations, and dialogue with them, and see how I can support and how we can do things. I would love to see all the pastors get together on the conduit and have a conversation about a current event or about a topic like this, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that would be very powerful and impactful, and really change the perception from those that have been disenfranchised or people that haven't connected to a church in that way. So we're getting a little bit short, so let's jump on to number 3 there.
Okay. So ourselves, trusting God with ourselves. I talked about you know our healing, our protection, our provision, and our salvation, which I think the last two are really more the two bigger ones, trusting God with our provision and our salvation. And, a lot of people, are tend to think that just because, they're weekly, churchgoers, like salvation's in the bag. I go to church every week. I'm going to heaven. Yay. That's not how it works, people. I'm sorry. I hate to break the bad news to you, but that's not how salvation works. Just because you're a regular churchgoer, that does not guarantee you a spot into heaven. Salvation really does center around trust. It centers around faith in Christ. Um, so we have to, learn to trust in God, trust in, his process for our salvation, and it's not, we don't get to decide who God is. We don't get to decide, what parts of his word we like and don't like, and the thing is, and I hate to say this, but it's true, it is so true. White right winged evangelicals uh, are doing a lot of damage to the body of Christ. They're doing a lot of damage to the body of Christ.
Black prosperity preaching, Creflo Dollars, and others are doing a lot of damage. Continue.
That is true.
I'm just trying to give some balance there.
Yeah, that is true. And that is that. Look, anybody that been following me, I will get on them prosperity preachers in a moment. I didn't, man, Creflo, bruh. I didn't hear that conversation. But I'm speaking, why I'm talking about and I get tongue tied, so I'm saying it like kind of slow because I get tongue tied.
Right wing evangelicals.
Yeah, white right wing evangelicals. They're dominating the narrative of Christianity, right? You see them, doing these, on the side of the highway with the, no abortion signs, the, the homophobia and so forth, right? And these are, things that I believe are biblically correct, right? Like, I think that homosexuality is a sin, right? I can agree with that. However, what I believe is that, God says for us to deal with the plank in our eye before we try and deal with the splinter in our brother's eye, right?
Mm.
We all got our own issues we need to be dealing with. We can't sit here and perry check what sin, is big and what sin is little, because God just sees sin as sin, and we need to deal with our own sin. Like I was saying, like I got a lot of stuff I got to deal with, right? I'm working on myself, right? And if I'm focusing on myself, I ain't got no time to worry about what your issue is. What God called me to do, what He called every Christian to do, was to go and introduce people to Christ, right? To evangelize to them, Christ Jesus, not to, hey, you're going to hell because you're transgender. Like, no, that ain't your place. Shut up, mind your business. What's your problem?
Mm-hmm.
What's sending you to hell? What's causing you to go to hell in the
What's
church?
sending you to hell?
Yeah, like real talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's sending you to hell? While you sitting in church every week, oh, holy is that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, that ain't gonna get you there, right? You know what I'm saying? And so they're doing a lot of damage, you know what I'm saying, and they're chasing people away because it's like, oh, you're pretty much telling me that I'm unlovable and God doesn't love me. Well, my Bible tells me that God went to the cross for my sin. He went to the cross for all of our sins. So let God, if God want to change that person, then that's between God and that person. Like, I've learned, that the problems that I got, I wasn't able to change for myself, right?
Mm.
And I wasn't, the problems that I had, like, and I hate picking on my wife, but like I tried to change her. Like, you know what? I want her to be this way and that way. And God was like, look, what about you? Like, look at yourself in the mirror while you trying to change somebody else, right? He flipped it all upside down on me. Like, God, leave me alone. And then it was like, okay, well, I can't change myself. I can't change my wife. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that ain't what, like, I'm not supposed to do those things. I'm supposed to mind my business and, like, hey, God, this is what I'm struggling with right now, and let me and God deal with that or whatever. And God will make the changes in us that He wants to see. All we got to do is love one another. He said, how you going to sit here and say you love me, who you ain't never seen, but you don't love your brother who you see every day? You want to hate on this person because, they say that they binary or, whatever else, or they like, that ain't your problem. Like, leave them alone. Why is you picking? The Bible says, like, how you gonna judge another master's servant? Like, you know what I'm saying? These are things we are not supposed to be doing, and so they're doing a lot of damage to the church, where they're chasing people away because they're like, oh, well, your God don't love me. Why should I love Him? Why should I, go and seek after Him? And it's like, no, So if you're whatever your sin is, God still loves you. He sent His Son to die for you, And even if you die in your sin, right? Like, whatever, because everybody want, like, oh, this is like, okay, so the homosexual, that's your worst sin, you know. Not the fact that you're a serial killer, but you're a homosexual. That's the problem. You can be the serial killer, but you the homosexual. That's the huge sin. So what I'm saying, you can't get into heaven. Like, no, you know what I'm saying. So how about you not sit here and try and pick out somebody's sin, what I'm saying, and let them just come to Christ. And as long as that person is seeking, what I'm saying, a genuine, honest relationship with God, and they're trying to build that relationship with God, it don't matter what they sin is, because again, that's between them and God to work that out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
That's what I'm trying to get.
So what I was gonna say was, so basically, when I die, I'm gonna die in sin. But if I have accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior, then I will be forgiven.
Bro, I'm gonna tell you something. We all gonna die in sin,
Mhm.
because of the first thing I said, that ain't none of us perfect. We all gonna have something that we're constantly working on, we're constantly trying to fix. If you get to the point where you just like, oh, I got this, I'm good, I ain't gotta do no more work, like, you got a big problem now. like seriously, you got a real big problem. Like, we're all gonna die in sin because we're not perfect, and every time we feel like, okay, I done kind of got this one under control or whatever, it's something else. or something from way back when gonna come creeping back up again. The devil is out to kill, steal, and destroy. He is not gonna give up, right? So we're always battling, struggling, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So we're all gonna die in the sin. That's a fact that maybe your pastor ain't told you, but it's true. Think about it. We're all gonna die in sin. The thing is, we're actively seeking to be more Christ-like. That's what I say. I'm trying to challenge people to be more Christ-like. You know what I'm saying?
So
it's not that you're gonna achieve it, but to be more Christ-like, not to be Christ.
So is it a thing where the human in us is able to pass judgment so easily on visible sins, like addiction, gambling, infidelity, right? It's like, oh well, we can point to that. That's bad. That's a sin, right? But we're really good at hiding our sin too, right? Hey, you don't know how I'm sinning because I'm gonna make sure I don't show that, And there's other things that you don't show me all your sin,
and I do have sin, people I'm working on. But that's between me and God, not you. Me and you. Like, don't worry about my sin. I ain't thinking about yours. Trust me.
So I'm asking you one question. Hopefully, we won't go too deep in the rabbit hole. So I hear what you're saying.
You know me in rabbit holes, bro. I love going down them rabbit holes. No, go ahead.
So I hear your point with, I would say a radical, right wing, white evangelistic, church. That being said, is it that church or is it society? And I'm asking the question this way. I am very critical of our hip hop culture, right? And the artists, I like a lot of artists, and I like artists that say crazy and wild things too. Not so much now as I get older, but loved NWA and many of the older groups. But KRS-One, Common, a lot of conscious rappers, right? That most of us love. They're not the ones that are, quadruple platinum and elevated, right? The record companies don't promote that. They promote everything else. So, I kind of look at those things as the same thing. Two examples of things that get pushed out into the world. And it's like, okay, so this is what it is. Now the conscious rap is there, right? There are healthy and positive church bodies that exist, but those aren't the ones that get elevated, right? So evangelicals, yeah, they can hold a sign, but CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, they have to cover all that. So, how does a church have an active plan to combat that?
So, man, I'm really trying not to jump in the rabbit hole.
And keep it to 5 words or less.
That's a whole nother show. Okay, so first let me say this, right? And I understand your references to KRS-One and Common and NWA and all that. I listen to all that too, but there are some very good Christian rap out there that I like to listen to, and very good artists out there. So there's rap. The thing is, right? Society does play its part, right? And I'll say the enemy, the devil, plays his part. He's gonna play his part. This is just what it is. Like like I said, he's out to steal, kill, rob, destroy, vandalize. He just want the worst of the worst, right? Thing is, the structure of the Protestant church is that a large majority of it is just independent bodies like mine, per se, right? You do have some hierarchy bodies like the Assemblies of God, the Kojics, the Catholics, the Lutherans, so forth, right? Where there's this hierarchy structure, Methodist, so and even in those, again, it's gonna be a lot of people going to hell through the church. It's just what it is. You know what I'm saying? Folk gotta, have a made up mind, you know, where they're finna stand. Like, I took a look at this stuff, and I wasn't raised in the church. I tell people this all the time. And so coming into the church was as an outsider, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do these things. As the more and more, I learned about who Christ is and what God one of us, and who he is. The more I learned about my God, and me being obedient to him, it's like I'm gonna take a stand. I'm not finna put myself in God's place and try and judge other people, because he told me not to do that, right? He told me to love people, so I'm gonna do that, right? And that's, and it's not about your title in the church, pastor, deacon, usher, choir member. It's your position in the church, child of God. You know, you got to have a made up mind that either you're going to go along with the foolishness or you're not. You know, and it don't matter who you serving up under. And I've always, I used to be in a gang, right? But I wasn't doing what they said do and what they wanted me to do what I want to do. Like, no, I don't care. Like, you can make other people do what you want them to do. You ain't gonna make me do nothing, because it's just, I've always been stubborn like that, right? Like, I don't care. You know, we have to have made up minds like that say, like, okay, I love this church, I love the congregation, the people in here, and I love the pastor and his first lady and the deacons, and and this is where I like to go to church. But they be gay bashing. Well, you know what? That don't mean that you got to participate in that. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to participate in that. You can, people can make a stand, and God can use you to make big things happen. I look at Jeremiah. He was a youth. He was like, but I'm a youth. I was like, don't worry about that. You're like, don't be scared of them. Like, I got you. Go on in there, get this done, right? He threw him down, and tried to kill him several times, threw him down in wells, everything. Jeremiah kept keeping on. You know what I'm saying? You're not all, as Christians, we're not called to be like the most popular people, in the room. We're not called to be the most loved, or all this other stuff that we get wrapped up and concerned with, and trying to you know meet up to these standards, these societal standards. God, like, I ain't told you to worry about none of that. Like, because for me, when it all boils down to it, for me, my big concern is that he's pleased, right? That God is pleased. I can, I love you, but I can care less if you're pleased or not. You know, if I'm doing, the things that please God, 9 out of 10, I'm not going to be trespassing against you, doing things that hurt you and upset you and everything else, right? Because God's not about that, and so it's not a hard thing. We got to stop trying to be men, and I say this with air quotes, in the masculine sense. We got to stop being men pleasers and start being being a God pleaser, God worshiper. Because we spend too much time, with this societal stuff, and it's a plague.
Well, say it again for the people in the back, for the agnostics and the atheists. There's a lot of Christian folks that's gonna be going to hell. That's facts. That's facts. I love it. But and I appreciate you taking some time there, because Christianity is getting a bad rap, and from a lot of Christians, right, that are standing.
Well, you know what? I like to call them professing Christians,
Mm.
because they profess and they say, yeah, I'm a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
But a true Christian don't have to say they're Christian. They just
you can
live
see it.
Yeah. They live it, and you see the light come out of them. You see the Holy Ghost in them. You see Jesus in them. They ain't gotta say it.
I wish I had the horn.
Yeah, you got them professing Christians that say, "Yeah, I'm a Christian. Look at me. I love God. Yeah, I go to church every week. Where you be at?"
Mm-hmm.
I be telling people you ain't gotta call
and they're some of the nastiest, most venomous people you know.
Yeah, I try to tell people if you're gonna come join my church, or you're gonna be a part of not my church, Lord forgive me. If you're gonna come and be a part of the New Horizon congregation, and you decide you know what, this week I'm not going to worship service, you ain't gotta call me and be yeah, Pat, you know what, you know what I'm saying. If you got a leadership role, then let me know so we can arrange things or whatever. But other than that, if you know what I'm saying. And so people get too caught up in all of that. Like I say, we don't even do worship service the way they did it when Jesus was around. So.
All right, so that last one, number 3, ourselves, our healing, protection, provision, and salvation. I think you really touched on all of those things there. And from the secular side of it, one, for the sake of time, but 2, I think you really covered it, right? And you will see, a person. Let me back up. They say, your reputation will go before you, right? You write your resume every day. And so people will know who you are by how you move in the world. And so you don't have to carry a big sign and say, hey, this is who I am, right? People will see it. They also say, give a person long enough and they'll reveal to you who they are, right? And so I do believe all of those things are true. And so you're going to see that, right? Yeah. And you want to reveal yourself to yourself. I think that's important also. So while we are projecting and putting on this facade for the world, who are you? So
are you asking me that question?
No, it's rhetorical.
Oh, okay. Because I do want to ask you that question.
Okay, go ahead.
So I guess now I can, it had been long enough. Yeah, I can spill this. So the very first show we did, I intentionally bombed that, right? I was not going to be authentic in my questioning, in my answering, because I wanted you to answer it for yourself.
I don't remember our first show.
Well, you should look it up.
I will go back.
I remember that. But yeah, so I'll tell you. So the very first show that we did, you were getting everybody on answer questions about themselves, and in particular, what type of friend they were.
I do remember the questions when I very first started podcasting. Yeah.
I was in the other church. It was nighttime, and I did that. So, what type of friend do you think I am now? Because do you remember my answer though? Let me ask you that.
No, I don't, and only because I've done more than 600 shows.
I told you I was not a very good friend. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, you did say you're not a very good friend. I think you're a good friend.
I did that intentionally. I think it kind of back to our relations. When I was saying we have to take our time and be intentional, about who we're going to be in relationships, with one another, and build, relationships, and I can't answer, anybody that oh, what type of friend are you? Because I don't know what type of person you are. You don't know what type of person. So I don't.
Well, I wasn't asking the question what kind of friend are you to me?
I know that.
But you're just saying I'm not a good friend, period.
Yeah.
Because we're not friends.
Well, no, not well. Yeah, and no.
Because, yeah, if you're just meeting someone, we're not friends. We're acquaintances. That has to be built.
Yeah, and saying the answer is going to be different for every person in my life, because some people that I come across may not be a good friend. Some may be a very good friend because of those dynamics of building a relationship. Because sometimes you may try and go slow and be intentional, and they're just rush,
right?
And it just, what I'm saying, passes by. So I was intentional in sabotaging those answers.
Wow, I feel some kind of way about that. But I think there's you pointed out something that's important too, is friendship isn't going to look the same for every single person, right? You're going to be a different friend to Rob, let's say, than you are to me, right? It's going to look different because the friendship is different. The needs of that friendship are different, right? So yeah, no, I appreciate that. Not that you sabotage it and just waiting to bring it back, Definitely wait till we get offline.
Hey, y'all, look, I'm at 40 week way. Come help me.
Hey, he fell down the stairs. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I'm beat up the send help.
But like I said, I think you really touched on it. That the healing can really come from understanding who you are and how you move. And what I was saying about, putting that facade on, who are you? A lot of folks give me a lot of grief for how I present, right? I wear a tie typically 6 days a week. Or if I have on, a polo, maybe it's a logoed polo with G2 on it. I have jeans, I have a hat, I have hoodies. And if
we know about the hoodie.
Oh, that's right. You should know about the hoodie. But if I put those things on, I'm typically making a statement, right? There's a purpose between it. I'm comfortable wearing this, right? People will say, "Oh, I don't like." To me, jeans are uncomfortable. They're a thick material. They're not very. You just can't move. Dress slacks just flow. It's like you're barely wearing anything.
Oh boy. Don't get started.
Wow. Hey, Pastor, get your head out the gutter. So, you can accessorize. You know what I'm saying? I like to mix and match. I like to look good, but I do like to feel good. I'm not, when I wear the way that I dress, I'm not like, oh my goodness, I'm just so uncomfortable and uptight. Like, no, I'm comfortable. Yeah. This is how I like to be, right? And so it's not something that is like that's not who I am, right? It is who I am. So interesting too. You talk about that. I bumped into one of my old students the other day. I was telling you about that. Went in and got us a soda. It's like, hey, Mr. C, and I don't remember the name. I remember the face. And so we just kind of have a conversation and whatnot. But that was from 8 years ago, right? And so he sees the same person 8 years ago. So consistency. I am what I am.
Yeah.
So I know who I am, who I is. I'm constantly trying to learn and grow and become better. And in that, some of that is having those conversations where I discover, hey, you know what? You're making an excuse here. You just need to go ahead and jump in. And jumping in might be reading during commercials, right? But you're on the path. Right now you haven't started, right? And so, and I think I have started. This is my way of doing it. Like the No Cap recap, talking with the different pastors. Tomorrow I'll be speaking at another church, which I'll tell you guys here about here in a second. But being even more intentional, right? Because you still need to get into the Word. You still have to have a ongoing comprehension of the Word. Right. So I know that I need to have that. It's not enough I read that Bible. I used to have all the books memorized. Right. It was just what we did as kids, Christian games for PKs. I think a lot of people did that. But, you speed. How fast can you get here? How fast can can you recite them all? I can't do it now. But the fact that I can't and that I don't remember Bible verses is I haven't prioritized that. So I need to get back into that. And when I'm feeling weak, when I'm feeling emotional or angry or sad, or if I'm feeling overzealous, exuberant, full of myself, right? It's both spectrums. When I'm down or if I'm too high and not being humble, I need the Word to keep me, right there in the middle. And moving forward, let your highs and your lows, they're gonna happen, but you don't want them to be too high and too low, right? You might be dealing with some bipolar situation that you might need some help with.
Proverbs 30 says, "Lord, don't give me too much that I forget who you are and curse you, and Lord, don't give me too little that no, don't give me too much that I forget who you are and curse you. Don't give me too little that I sin against you. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what it says. You know, you don't want too much, you don't want too little. Just give me enough, Lord. You know, uh, yeah. So stay humble.
And the last thing I'll say, because you brought that verse up, I find myself in that space now in my life, right? There was a time when I was chasing all these material things, right? I wanted the house, I wanted the car, I wanted all of the trappings of a good life, and I've had all those things, right? And
happier now without them. I am at least.
Well, yeah, there's
perspective.
Yeah, it's perspective, right? Would I prefer to be a homeowner versus a renter? That depends, right? The mortgage that we had was a house that was too big for us. It was, it's a 5-bedroom, 3-bath home for just me and my ex-wife and Layla. We didn't need all that, right? And the mortgage was insane on that. So, there is a freedom that if I had to, I can get up and go. I'm not tethered to that. I don't have to put a new roof on and a new furnace and new windows. I actually did all those things, or tear down 28 trees. We can go on and on and on. But those things are there, right? And it can become an albatross on your life when you're living to maintain that ownership of that thing, right? And now I'm living in a fraction of the space that I lived in before, probably a fourth, right? I have enough time trying to maintain that.
Yeah.
And it's cool. And I'm so busy doing the work in the community, I ain't got time to deal with 5 and 6 extra rooms that I barely go into. And need all that. Now, if I had it, I'd probably be renting them out to folks that really need it. But that's a whole different thing. So I do have a different perspective on life now, and I have a joy that I'm no longer caught up by that, right?
And I think that's the thing. And we're gonna have to go because I gotta go pick the wife up to call the flat. We, that it's not there's, and I try and tell people this, right? Because they say like I harp on money and whatever, right? Like money's not evil. There's nothing sinful about money, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, you need to possess your resources. Your resources should not possess you, and if they possess you, then you got a problem, right? And like you said, like when I was younger, same thing, I'm chasing, I'm saying, that American dream of this is happiness, this is, what the good life is, this is what success is, or whatever else, right? But when I learned that, what, you don't get to decide that for me.
Mm-hmm.
I can decide for myself what happiness is and success is for myself. It's not what, that quote unquote American dream. It's what I say success looks like. It's what I say happiness looks like. And if I want that to be, like you say, home ownership, or, a new car every year, or whatever else, as long as, I understand that I dictate that and it's not the world that dictates it, what I'm saying, and that's not my priority.
Yeah.
What I'm saying? That's not first in my life, because that's a problem. We put these things first in our lives, we find ourselves in trouble. God says, put me first, and all these things will be added unto you. Seek the, he said, seek the first the kingdom of God, and all these things be added to you. We supposed to chase after God, not, the bag.
Well, and that's it, right? And a lot of our youth suffer from that, right?
Yeah.
They're being told exactly it, right? You got to get the bag. It's all about the bag. If you never get the bag, what happens? So you just going to be miserable and unhappy because you never got the bag. You never got to live the way that they are projecting it to you, where the hip hop artists are wearing fake jewelry. It looks real. They posing in front of rented vehicles and rented mansions, right? They're wearing.
Did you ever see the what was that? They used to be on MTV where they did the Cribs.
The Crips, yeah.
Yeah, all of those was rented.
Yeah,
all of those was rented. I think maybe like 2 or 3 was real.
And it gets smaller. So you may not be looking at that, but it's like, oh man, I gotta have my Jordans or I gotta have my Yeezys or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And why do you value that? Why is that important to you? It's important because society says you need to value that, right? And then you find out, well, they're actually only, only cost $5 in China to make, but you're paying $250 for them, and someone might kill you for them, right? Right. And so it's perspective. And so now your happiness is contingent upon you having these things that really add no actual value to your life besides superficial value. And so if our youth could understand that, if our young adults, we have 30 and 40-year-olds that don't understand that are still trying to get the bag. And because, hey, look, the average American salary is about $45,000 a year, but you're trying to live this $150,000 lifestyle and you don't have it.
And hold on, here's the thing, right? You chasing the bag. How many other people chasing it too? There's only one bag. Who gonna get it?
Well, no. They, there's everyone can have the bag, right?
How you gonna have the bag and I have it too?
That's the trick, right?
I ain't sharing the bag with you, man. If I get the bag, it's mine. Right?
Yeah. Well, I might give you a little bit of the bag,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then people want to sit here and say like, "Oh, I think for myself." No, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You letting society think for you, telling you, this is what look good. Like and I love this, and I never took this away from my daughter, Katanine. Like, I don't care what was going on. She wanted to dress herself, and she put the most craziest stuff together, but she had her own style. And it's like, baby, you go. You know what I'm saying? And like, I would never take that from her, right? Because she was deciding for herself what she liked it, what felt good, what looked good to her, you know what I'm saying? At 4, 5, 6 years old, like she had like already had that. It's like, man, I would never like say, oh no, you can't wear that. Like, no, you want one pink and one green sock, and you know what I'm saying, like whatever, like she had crazy combinations, but it worked for her. That was her style, and it just became her. Like it fit. Like, okay, it didn't look, maybe the first time, but after that, it was like, okay, I don't look crazy. That's just catching me.
So it's important to like it because that's what you like, not because that's what everybody else is saying. That's what you should like. That's what you should value. Exactly. You watch it, right? There, folks look really cookie cutter, right? You see the really big eyelashes and the BBLs, and I'm talking more in the world now, right? Brazilian butt lifts. Yeah, see, I'm coming. Remember, I come from the worldly side. The pastor's like, what you talking about now? Or we're sagging our pants, and we got the name brand of our underwear showing and things like that. And it's like, what are you doing that for?
Yeah.
Why is that important to you? Yeah. You're buying labels that have the folks that come out and they've been racist, right? And it's like, well, no, I got the money, so I need to show them that I can pay for it. And we get so twisted in our mind. So it's not just on the material things of the money, but really take stock in your life in that. And I think that's really important in the healing and the protection of yourself, right? Yeah. So you're not protecting yourself when you're in that mindset and you really don't have the provision, right? You don't have the food. You don't have the security to know that you're going to be able to make your rent paid because you're so busy trying to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, right? You're so busy trying to chase the bag,
you're doing illegal things.
You'll see someone with a really nice car, and then it's like, well, how's your home life looking? I don't have the basics. You ever work with someone or have a family member or a friend that's always trying to borrow money, and it's like, if you actually spent your money on your basic needs, you wouldn't need to borrow money. You would have what you have, but you're so busy chasing these other things, and ultimately you're not happy, right? You're just constantly chasing it. So anyway, let's go ahead, and the dogs is going crazy over there. So tomorrow I will be at the Summit Ave Presbyterian Church at 403 South Summit.
I'll be there too, you guys.
Yep.
Not with the collar on. I'm putting on the jeans. Listen, I'm comfortable in slacks or jeans. I'm telling you that now. But I'm putting back on my jeans and my jimmies.
So shout out to Pastor Susie Beal. I'll be speaking there tomorrow during their sermon. Worship service starts at 10:30. So, it's an open invitation for you to come and join us tomorrow, but to join them, outside of just tomorrow. So that's where I will be. And then, of course, tomorrow is the teen block party put on by the Black Student Union at the Marvin Williams Center parking lot, open to all age of kids. There's going to be food trucks there. I know Pastor might swing by after that because, food truck is going to be delicious. Face painting, music. There's going to be artists. Everything is going to be clean. No bad language or anything like that. And again, kids of all ages. So come and support. And we hope to see you then. But for Pastor Ellington, who is going into his second year, again, congratulations. I am Marwan Cameron.
I specifically told you.
Hey, don't tell me nothing that you want to.
I'm going to do what I want to do anyway.
Well, you know what? You said that there was a certain part that I wasn't supposed to talk about. And I didn't talk about that part, but the other part I did. So, if you want me to be in the cone of silence, you better put it on for the whole thing and then have me lift.
It was for the whole thing.
Oh no, I didn't get it like that. So,
next time I'm gonna have to be more.
Anyway, for the Rev, I'm Marwan. This is the No Cap Recap. This is the Conduit Network. We will see you guys.